So basically what we're going to do here is I'm going to drop the Zoom link. Holy crap, 22 people. This is so rad. I'm going to drop the Zoom link for you guys into the comments, and then you guys can come join us that way, all right? We're going to make it happen here. We're trying to figure this out technologically to make it happen. So is it still sounding weird to you guys out there? No? Yes? All right, so I'm back at it with just me. What I'm going to do is sign into Facebook and drop a link for everybody with the Zoom so that you can join into our call here and you can come hang out with Angela and I. That's how it's going to go down. All right, Zoom link coming up, my friends. All right. I'll BRB. Stay with me, Brian. I'll be right back. I'm going to drop a Zoom link for you guys so you can join into our conversation. We have Angela with us. She's super chill. She's super fun. And we're going to get this going on here. All right. Oh, I think it might be working.
I'm here.
All right, friends. I'm actually about to pop back on live with Angela. I've got it working on Zoom, so I'll see you in just a second. Stick around. The notification's going to pop up any second.
Buddy.
So teachers sound like.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I'm gonna need your respect, okay?
Hey, Angela, I'm back and it's letting me log into Facebook this time. So I just got to find my password for Facebook, of course.
Oh my goodness gracious.
I've done this for how many weeks now and I can't get a setup that works. And I had like 22 viewers and now I have to like change everything up. So that's cool. Whatever.
Will it end up letting me see you or just this?
Nope,
like,
it'll let me see you, or it'll let you see me in just a second. As soon as I get my life signed into fucking Facebook. Dude,
no.
I can't handle my life right now.
You need a password notebook.
I do. All right. Okay, I'm live on Facebook. Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Save my password. Allow. Share on your timeline. All right, cool. So we are in here. I'm just going to run it off the computer, and that's what's going to happen. My live stream is being prepared. This is not as nice of a camera, but it will work for this week. So what it's doing right now is like initializing the live stream. So if you just hang out for a second, it'll get us live on Facebook and it'll be right back on my page so people will be able to see it.
Okay.
All right.
You're doing good, Bubba.
Thank you, baby. Aw, my son popped in to say you're good. You're doing good, Mama.
Oh my God, that's the cutest thing ever. That's so cute.
He's so perfect.
How old is he?
9. The little one that comes.
Is he the one that did the yard sale?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep.
Mikey used to do stuff like that when he was little.
Aw.
It was so good. He would always be creating, and now that he's 12, he's like way too cool for it.
Aw. Yeah, I fear for that, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, like it's gonna happen, you know. But
Yeah.
I was hoping we could like stave it off as long as possible. So
Oh, I know. He's the youngest of 6, so
yeah.
I know how quickly it goes.
How many of your kids are adults now?
2, technically.
Technically, right?
Yeah.
I understand the technically there. So
Yeah.
all right, it looks like we're live on Facebook.
Okay. Thank you,
All
baby.
right. I'm just bringing myself onto the screen. Look at us. We're real friends and
Nice.
live on Facebook. Okay, so people should be able to join us via Facebook now. And so we can chat that way. I will pull up the Facebook chat on my phone so that after we are talking for a while, people can ask questions. But for the first little bit, I just want to chat and then we'll go from there, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
All right, awesome. So I'm just gonna fix my camera angle a little bit. But what I'd love to start off with is just chatting about like, give us a brief rundown of who you are, right?
Who I am.
Yeah, just like in general, like a small, tiny little topic, right?
Okay. Well, I am single mother of 6.
Just a few kids.
Yeah, just a couple. Got my own team and an alternate.
Exactly.
I grew up in Portville, actually. I wasn't born around here, but I ended up coming here in like first grade. Graduated from Portville, really small town. Although I'm sure I'm not alone with the feeling that maybe living in a small town, you are really yearning for something bigger, right?
Oh, for
To
sure.
get out there and have adventures and things like that. So actually, when I turned 18, I moved.
Perfect.
I moved down south, and then I moved over to Okinawa, Japan. Traveled around, you know, somehow brought me back here.
Yeah.
And then I left again, and I moved to North Africa, Morocco,
Okay.
for a few years. And then I came back because my oldest son, he expressed the desire to attend university in the US. And I knew he would not be ready with certain skills due to the kind of classes the kids were taking over there. You know, mostly things were in Arabic and French.
Right.
So we came back his senior year, and we've stayed.
Yeah, right. So how many
Yeah.
years has it been that you've been back in town?
Four
4 years.
years.
Okay. And what,
Yep.
what year did you graduate from Portville?
99.
Oh. Are you trying to avoid numbers there for a second? No, so
I'm only 24.
you're right, only 24. Like, what anniversary is it of your 24th birthday? That's the question, right?
The
I won't,
first.
I won't put you on the spot like that. But okay. Cool. So basically, I know a lot of the people that are watching, and I can tell because I'm watching the Facebook feed right now. A lot of people that are watching are from a similar area to us, right? And I'm saying us because we both. I graduated high school, from Duke Center, which is not far away.
Oh yeah, smaller than Portville.
Right, exactly. Oh yes, we didn't have any stoplights, and I think we only had a couple stop signs. Like it's a very.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, when I went to take hi child who's in the background.
He made me some hot chocolate.
Oh my God, why is your
Thank
child
you, babe. Thank you. Thank you.
So we came from very similar areas, right? And I have always been a person who's like spiritually curious. And so the reason that I wanted to have you on here was because I was thinking to myself, like, this is a really cool story. And what's cool about it is that you and I essentially came from the same place, right?
Yeah.
And we're both, I would classify us both as spiritually curious.
Yeah.
And so like how we got to where we both are in life, like if people looked at us, they wouldn't necessarily think that we would end up vibing so well. But like since the day I met you
Right.
online, and then we met in person, I was like, yo, this chick is awesome.
Yeah.
And we've had so much in common. And so really the reason that I was hoping to have you on here is because first of all, you're a great person, right? So that's
You
out there. But you've also shown me that you are like incredibly passionate about the same things that I'm passionate about. And I grew up in this Christian mindset. And the first time I ever heard Arabic live and in person, I was actually in Barcelona at an Arabic speaking Christian church, right? So
Oh yes, I've heard of this one.
yes. And so I've never been at that point in my life, the only place I had ever been was the Dominican Republic. And so it's still fairly like kind of Western, right? And I heard Arabic and I was really deeply uncomfortable. And I was in this church and I was like, what is my issue, right? And I realized the only time that in my life that I had heard Arabic was on the news in reference to terrorism.
That or the movies where some doom is impending, right?
Yeah,
From some jihadists.
exactly, right?
Yeah.
And
I
so
know.
I found that like own internalized like Islamophobia that I had. And
Yeah.
no one had ever told me outright, like, you need to hate Muslim people. You need to hate people that speak the English language. But I had this understanding in my head. And I was like, yo, that's not okay. Like, we've got to deconstruct that narrative in my brain. And so it's been a journey since then. But when I met you, I was like, this is cool. We can talk nerdy religious talk. And I would just kind of love to, like, we know where you are, but I would love to hear like a little bit of your story. So I'm just gonna ask you some questions and like feel free to riff off of them. How's that sound?
Okay, sounds good.
All right, cool. So for the viewers out in viewerland, I think we have 12 of you at the time. That's pretty cool. But for the viewers out in viewerland, Angela and I have had like an introductory conversation, but we didn't get really to dig into her story. And so I'm really, really interested to hear the answers to these questions. But I do know that Angela, grew up not particularly religious, right? And then you were involved with the Christian church, correct?
Right. So I was in a non-practicing family, although we knew God was God, right?
Okay.
My mom was raised Catholic, but she did not bring that to us.
Okay.
So there was a Bible in the house,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a church down at the end of the road
Okay.
that somehow I came to know about, Vacation Bible School every time we had a break.
Okay.
And I had that yearning to go and keep going. So
Yeah.
From there, I guess I knew, I wanted this relationship with God. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like, you strike me as, I say this about my son Michael all the time, that he's a person who wants to believe, right? And so it doesn't necessarily matter. Like, there was some innate yearning inside of you that was like, there's
Yeah.
something,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So you've been on this like lifelong quest to find it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. So how long were you involved like in that church that you went to Vacation Bible School for?
So that was some of childhood, like early childhood. Like maybe first grade to sixth, seventh grade, around there, I guess.
Okay, cool. And so
Sixth grade.
so did you say sixth grade?
Yeah, because then I started going to a Baptist church.
Okay, cool.
Yep, and I would go to Awana's there every week, become part of this. Yep. Yep. Bible
And
verse.
what drew you from the first church that you went to the Baptist church?
I'm guessing, I don't exactly completely recall, but what I'm guessing is that once you hit a certain age, that Vacation Bible School stuff ends, right? And since my family was not a church-going family, we were not going like as a family every Sunday, so nothing to really keep me there, I guess.
Okay.
As a young child, right?
Right.
And I had a cousin who lived in West Clarksville.
Okay.
Same exact name. Both of us.
That's so wild.
Yep, neither one of us are anymore, but we both were Angela Rhodes. So I was the Angela Rhodes from Portville and her from over there. But anyway, so yep, I'd go visit her, and she was going to that church because, West Clarksville's like tiny.
Yeah, for sure.
And yep, so I started going there, met some friends. It was neat for me to have friends that were different from what I was hanging out with, I guess. Kids who were into religion, who showed you that stigma of like, you can be religious but not fun, right? Was not really true. So
Very cool.
That's what took me there.
I definitely went through that journey too, when I was like a teenager, because I always like to say that I wasn't like involved in church. I drank the Kool-Aid. Like I was there, right? Well,
Mm.
I mean, my dad was a pastor, but like
Yeah.
that doesn't always necessarily mean that you're going to be super involved, right? Like my dad was a pastor, but I didn't just go to church. I was like a church like superstar. Like
Mhm.
that was my whole focus. And from that very young age, I just drank the Kool-Aid, you know.
Mhm.
And then in high school, I was like, no, like church can be cool, man. And I started like this youth group to get like people involved that were like also cool and that we could like make the Bible cool, whatever. So I totally
Right.
get that draw. So you had these kind of like experiences, formative young
Mhm.
experiences that you had, right? You wanted, you sought out from
Right. Right.
the beginning.
Yeah.
So tell me what was the biggest thing that you got from being involved in the church at that point in your life? Like what were you getting out of it? What was the message? What was the hallmark of it?
At that point, so still as like a young kid, I just knew, I guess what I was getting was I could definitely feel the presence of God,
Mm-hmm,
and I did not want that to disappear.
mm-hmm.
Right? Once you feel it, it's like you don't want it to ever go away.
So you had like a tangible experience that created some sort of actual feeling within your physical and emotional and psychological being, right?
Yeah, and I think at that point in life, I was still really innocent, right? So nothing like, praise God, I had a really good upbringing,
Uh,
where there was no trauma, you know what I mean? So I know a lot of people later in life, they seek God because of their trauma,
mhm.
and they really want to refocus life, and that's where their religion comes into place. But for me, I was not at that point in my life yet, still very innocent and had not experienced the ugliness of the world. So it was just purely for that connection with God.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very
Yeah.
cool. Sometimes I struggle too because like I've kind of vacillated it just in my own understanding of church. Like I kind of like I don't know. I went from being like so into the church and then the church was like, you're gay, bye. You know what I mean?
I
Um
do know what you mean.
yeah,
Yeah.
you
Not about being gay, but I got pregnant.
Oh, okay. So like there's like ladders of sins, right? And
Yeah.
I think it goes like pregnancy, divorce, like being gay. No matter
Mhm.
what happens, like I always used to joke with my family members. One of my family members went through a divorce right around the time I was coming out, and I was like, well, at least I came out as gay because you can never be as shitty as me. You know what I mean?
Aw. Well,
You know, you have those moments where you're like, oh man, like this
uh-huh.
institution that I built, like that I had so many positive experiences with, because for me church was a positive experience, but then
Hmm.
all of a sudden like the institution that I wanted didn't want me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's like that's
Institution, yes, but not God.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And that was, I think that was what made it so confusing for me. And I don't want to speak for you because well, I'll let you speak for you because we're having a conversation. See, it's in the name.
Yeah.
But like for me that was confusing because like I still wanted to engage, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Because there was still something that I was getting from that communal gathering space, but that communal
Hmm.
gathering space didn't want me. And so then I was like kind of like, you know, deuces for a little bit, but now here I am back doing whatever I'm doing. I don't know what it is. Like I applied to graduate school for seminary last week. I'm a
Wow.
professor right now. I don't know what's going to happen, but here we are talking on Zoom after 10,000 technological errors about feeling God in the pit of your stomach, you know?
Right. Right.
Okay, so that you had these like visceral experiences when you were young. Now talk to me like, and you can get as deep or as general as you want, because like this is your story to tell and I don't want to steer it in any one direction, but tell me like how did you move, as the name of our talk suggests, from the pew to the mosque? Like what was that transition like? And you can You can explain it in any words possible. We'll keep digging into it, but
Okay, so before there was another piece, right?
okay.
So between early childhood and young adolescence came like older teen, where I was in a state of complete rebellion. Complete. I think that I've tried to psychoanalyze my own situation and
Of
self.
course, because we all do.
Yeah. And I can just look back and say, although my parents were trying to be good parents, and keep you in a box, the closed-mindedness that I was surrounded by in my community, in my home, really pushed me. It pushed me to say, I knew inside, this is not right. I could tell you some things from elementary that I knew was not right from then. And it has a lot to do with racism,
Mm,
big time with racism. And so I think as a teen, we don't know how to completely process all of that. So
yeah.
many of us rebel. And so I started, drinking, smoking weed, having sex, got pregnant at 16.
All right.
Praise God. Really. That
Yeah,
that
yeah,
boy is my absolute love.
yeah.
I'm so blessed to have my kids. But
I've heard so many people say that, like, that having a child was their, like, cataclysmic moment. That was like, things are changing from this point on.
yes, yes, it was stop, stop, stop,
Yep,
and go the other way.
yep.
But in the middle of all that rebellion, my parents took me to that Baptist church pastor to talk to me because they knew that was me before he's going to help her. He said so many wrong things in that meeting. I'm not kidding. He told me that, Jesus is not going to hear me right now.
Oh
Oh
my
yes.
God.
Oh yes. It doesn't matter because if you're living wrong, God does not hear you. And Jesus, he just went on and on.
That's
And I
terrible
left there.
analytics.
Yeah. My parents have no idea, because they weren't sitting in there with me and the
Right.
pastor. I left there thinking, this guy has no clue what he's talking about. Like, I feel like I know what he was referencing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was where, yeah, God will turn a blind eye, basically, right? If you are continuing to live in sin. But he left out the part where God sees your heart and knows what's inside your heart and will never forsake you.
Yeah, yeah.
So I left there very upset and did not go back to church for a long time, although I continued to pray and life moved on. I left that rebellion. I had a few more kids,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But through all of that, yeah, I was still constantly saving my relationship with God for
Uh-huh.
sure. Um, and then I became really involved in this one church, and I was the leader of the children's ministry. And now at that point in life, yes, I had now gone through some tough things and really needed like-minded companions, right? And I
Right.
needed a church home. I needed that community to be my community. I wanted to feel accepted and feel like I was really a part of something good, something that was going to save me, help me feel better, like just make me feel like I was doing the right thing and belonging somewhere again. But as humans, right, we all fall short of the glory of God.
That's a whole
Uh,
thing. Yep.
yeah, and I did end up getting pregnant again with another church member. And I went to that pastor to let him know what was going on and, that I should step down and everything because I felt so ashamed. I've never felt that much shame in my life.
Isn't
Honestly.
interesting side note? First of all, why are white evangelicals so concerned with like angry, vindictive God? Like, why are they so focused on that, first of all? And second of all, like, just shame is man-made. Like, that is, shame is like, who I am is flawed, right? And so often that's forced on us because of other people. But like, if I'm feeling guilt, like, that's something where I'm like, okay, this is something inside of me that's saying like, hey, you might need to correct course a little bit. But I feel like so often shame is like forced on us, you know what I mean? So anyways, you were
For
saying,
sure.
yeah.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. I felt like I had to do all these different things because of the shame. Um, I felt like I couldn't face people, and here I am, like, I'm having another blessing. Like, I understand it was done outside of marriage, right? But children are definitely blessings. And I'm just going to throw one little thing in here about abortion. Like, for me personally, I would never have an abortion. That's why I have 6 kids, right? But
No.
but what I'm saying is, like, we have all these church-going people who are dead set against abortion, but then will shame you when you have sex outside of marriage and have a baby.
Yo, like,
See?
for real, what is the
Right,
logic there?
right. I I don't know.
I don't know. And like, I think God, like, if we're supposed to be, and I'm making some presuppositions here, but I haven't really hidden the fact that I come from a Christian upbringing. So a lot of times my Christian will seep out in my conversation, right?
Hmm.
But like, part of the tenets of the Bible, and the reason that we're both here is because we would both consider ourselves what Islam would refer to as people of the book, which is something that
Right.
I want to touch on in a minute. But we're both people of the book, and the book
Mhm.
tells us that we're made in God's image. And the very first thing, if you look at like Genesis 1, the first thing that God does in history, if you buy into the creation narrative, the first thing that we know God to be is creative. And having a
Mhm.
child is an act of creation. Like, so
Absolutely.
there's an element of divinity in that.
Mhm.
And
Well,
wherever,
he says, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb.
right, exactly.
So
Yeah,
there was a purpose. I mean, it was planned.
absolutely. And
Maybe
there's
not by me, but
Yeah, and there's something about it, and I think that maybe that could be a little bit redemptive for people who have, gotten pregnant out of wedlock, is that like
mhm,
there's something redemptive in creation, right?
mhm,
Also, as a side note, like, no one else has the ability to force you to be a part of that. Like, that's not okay. You know what I mean? But
mhm.
like you said, for you personally, like, no tea, no shade on anybody else, but just for you personally, you knew you couldn't handle the weight of that. So you engaged in this act of creation of bringing another life into the world too. And it seems like that set you on the path you're on now. So anyways,
Oh
back to your
yeah.
story.
Excuse me, I've had that cold.
It's all good. My brain also goes in all of these directions all the time. So feel free to like steer me.
Well, me too. We're a good team. Um, well, back to that. So when I told that pastor, he let me know he was going to shield me. Like, he physically showed me, I'm going to shield you from anyone else in the church who wants to say something negative, because you came and told me, and just whatever. So something happened to where I guess I started bleeding a little bit, and I needed to be put on modified bed rest. And during that time that I was off, so I couldn't go to church initially, not one person called on me.
Oh shoot.
Not one, not the pastor, not any elders, not anybody. Um, and so I think I became very bitter in that moment, and I did not even want to go back to church, right? I was so mad at the congregation as a whole, I think, because I was like, you know, I was there, I was involved, I was the leader of the children's ministry. I did a lot of things, you know, like, and not one person could call and ask me, are you okay?
Yeah.
Why? Because I got pregnant.
Yeah.
It-
Like, why?
yeah, it
I'm
was,
just going to drop you like a hot potato, but also don't get an abortion because hell and shame, but
right.
also don't have a baby because we will totally abandon you in your time of need. Seems like a
Absolutely.
very good interpretation of the Bible.
Yeah. Yep. So after that, I never attended church again. And at that time, actually, so I always choose the difficult path. And
Man, I really resonated with that one.
and I waited until I had 6 children to go back to college.
Oh, wow. Good flex.
Yeah. So I started, because before that I was just working, you know, to take care of all the kids. And I found a way to be able to go to college. You know, I had a really cheap apartment and lots of loans. So now I have lots of student debt, but
Hey.
yeah, at least I did that. And through my, during that time of my studies, I guess, I had a lot of like self-reflection because I was at home. I was studying, you know, we did the world religions class, we did cultural diversity, like just a lot of things. And I kept feeling this yearning still to God, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like something was missing, I guess. And I started doing some studying because, you know, people around us do whatever on Facebook, family members, they do have this vision of Islam from 9/11.
Right.
And I've heard a lot of it from a couple family members on something they think they remember when 9/11 first happened, about this chain email going around back then saying it was like some letter from these terrorists saying that they're all of Islam, so all Muslims are coming to the US to kill the infidel, right? And that's been stuck in her head ever since. And as I said, when I was younger, even from childhood, I knew certain things weren't right. And so I started to research.
Right. Of course.
Yeah. And I really liked what I was reading. I felt like this was book number 3, you understand, from the Torah to the Bible to the Quran.
Yeah.
But I was not ready to let go of the deity of Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
I was so scared to do that. You know, I didn't, you know, where he says, deny me in front of my Father, I'll deny you. Deny me and I'll deny you in front of my Father, right?
Yeah.
I was so fearful of that.
Well,
because
you came out of this institution that, like, just like any good cult, not sorry, but just like any good cult, like, if you defect, the world is over. Like, you know, like I feel like from the kind of churches that you're talking about having grown up in and the kind of churches that I grew up in, there was so much of that, like, us or nothing. We can't even talk about faith with anybody who comes from outside this circle, you know? So
well, yeah, and don't question. Sorry, yeah, and don't question things. It just is.
Yep. Check your brain at the door.
Right.
Yeah.
But to be honest, too, I was afraid of like hurting Jesus's feelings.
It's fair.
Right. I'm just being really transparent right now.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. But then, anyway, so when I got my college degree, I said I was taking myself on the first vacation ever without kids. First time I ever left the kids.
Yes.
Yep, it was like my gift to myself. And so I am a French speaker, and I started doing some research of French-speaking nations in Africa. and I happened upon Morocco. You know,
Okay.
it's a really safe nation, and French is the second language. And when I was researching it, oh my goodness, all the facts about Morocco were just insane. So that's like my second, we'll say third love, right?
All right.
God,
Sure.
kids, Morocco. It definitely became my third love. But, and I wanted to go to Paris. So I ended up with like a host family over in Morocco. I booked my ticket really cheap here. Here's some tips for people. If you want to stop over, like what I did for Paris was I booked a connecting flight with a 12-hour layover. So they had to keep all my luggage, but I got to go explore Paris.
Oh, that's fun.
See? Yep. And then I went into Morocco. And okay, so I was with this host family. I'm going to tell you right now, in all my time in Morocco, I have never once felt threatened, felt nervous. I have never been welcomed more than I have there.
That's an interesting commentary, right? Because we're supposed to be, America's supposed to be this nation united of differing people. And here you are having a completely antithetical experience in somewhere that for most of us would be completely out of our frame of reference, right?
Right. Yeah. But the first time I heard that call to prayer, oh my goodness. I'm getting chills.
No, absolutely. I know
I
what you mean
can't.
because I've heard it too. And I've heard it like in my travels, you know what I mean, in Barcelona. And then through actually a really cool experience that I had at the local mosque, which was like life-changing and really great for me. I definitely know what you're saying, because when I heard that call to prayer for the first time, I had the same feeling in my spirit that I have when I hear some beautiful pieces of liturgy, that I have when I hear some Jesus as my boyfriend contemporary worship music. It's interesting to me that all of those things elicited the same feeling within my spirit,
Yeah. Oh, for me too. I can tell you definitely some praise and worship songs I've heard or sung, and
Totally vibe too.
I'm sorry.
Totally vibe too.
Absolutely. I definitely have felt the spirit, But when I was in this truck going up into the mountains of Africa, so that's when I really, really had like the spiritual experience. And I was in this pickup truck. The window would not roll down. The driver's smoking away.
Oh my God.
So I couldn't breathe. And he's got the beads on the on the windshield there, and they're dangling.
Yeah. Yep.
And we're bouncing because we're going up this mountain. And you've got the traditional Moroccan music in the background, like flutes and stuff like that. But it was amazing. So I'm looking out the top of these mountains, and all of a sudden it just like flashed back to all this time that I've wanted to go to Africa, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, since I was little. And I started crying so hard. And I was just like thanking God so much in that moment. Like, who am I that you would really care about those desires of my heart?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Right. That's a whole thing in the book.
Right. And I felt so grateful in that moment. And I literally came home and I told my kids we're moving to Morocco.
Oh my God, no way. You seriously did.
We packed up within 6 months.
Oh my God.
Yes, found an apartment, a job. Kids were all for it. And I'm like, yeah, all my, great grandkids are going to be like, oh, my great grandma moved all her 6 kids to Africa. She was so brave. And,
Here you are, just this little badass with your tribe of, your family, like, yep, we're doing it.
Yeah. And we did. And we moved over, and the kids, they went to an Arabic and French schools, no English, complete immersion.
Wow.
And, yeah, through all of that, I continued to try and study as I could, but I was working a lot. But I knew, like, watching the people in Morocco and how God's name is said in every little transaction. You get into a taxi and it's salam alaikum, peace and blessings upon you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hand the money just to a taxi driver or to someone in a little corner store, it's Bismillah, in the name of God.
Mm-hmm.
Every single thing, like, it's constant. Like, to see people who are really living for religion, like, we, forgive me, but I'm pretty sure we are still calling ourselves a Christian nation, right? But I'm
Forgive
not
me if we're
seeing
completely
that.
unsure.
Yeah, I don't see it. A lot of people will tell you, okay, I believe in God, but don't preach to me.
Right.
But over there, I met people that were just so much into God that I think that pushed me to want to know more and more and more when I was already, like, at my peak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I still would not accept it. I know I'm taking a long time to tell this story.
Oh, take it. It's your
My
time.
mom hates it.
Too bad,
Says, get
Mom.
to the point, Angela. um, but I still wasn't ready. Even so, when I was living in Morocco, I was not a Muslim,
Uh-huh.
or I was not a practicing Muslim, right? Definitely not. I was just halfway there. And I came back here to the US, and I kept wanting to hear the adhan, the call to prayer. I wanted to hear the Quran and study it. And when I came upon the story of creation, where it is told that God, Allah, had sent the angels out to every corner of the earth to gather dirt, clay, right, of all different kinds, all different textures, all different colors, and bring it back to him to create the first human.
Mm.
That was it. Because I was like, all of this racism, the prejudice, the bigotry, everything that occurs here, God already knew and purposefully formed us to be diverse. He told them to gather all different kinds of dirt. And that was it for me. I'm sure everyone has something that touches them, but that was the one that really was like, okay, all right, this is it. I'm like extremely focusing on knowing more now with that. And when I found that I'm saying they, Muslims,
Uh-huh.
still believe that Jesus is the Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
He is alive. He is up there with Allah, waiting to come back and get his people, right? Just like we've known in Christianity. I was like, okay.
Right.
I'm
There was
okay
a point
with
of
this.
integration there for you.
Yeah. And that was it. And so, I just celebrated my fourth Ramadan. So my fourth year of fasting during Ramadan. The kids, they want to learn about it too. The youngest one seems to be, when we moved over to Morocco, he had never attended school in English or anything. So his first couple years were in Arabic and French.
Oh,
And
wow.
so so he's already like, everything's on his tongue already. Like,
Right.
when he goes to eat, he says Bismillah and Alhamdulillah for things, thank you, thanks
Oh,
to God.
wow, right. Because, like, his formative experiences occurred in that setting.
Exactly. So his brain is completely formed Moroccan.
Yeah. That's
Yep.
so interesting. So even within your own family, you can see the difference of someone who, like, found Islam versus someone who lived it as their primary experience.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I can tell you, like, one of the older kids hasn't embraced that.
Okay.
And I think it's because she's angry.
Mm.
Actually, I know that because I said it in front of her to a physician and she started crying. So I know that she's angry. She's angry, you know, because she's sick and she feels her body is not working right. And she has asked God to heal her so many times.
Mm.
And, you know, she hasn't been healed, but I've let her know, like, you are amazing. You know, I think God's touch is completely on you because you're still here. You're
Yeah,
walking.
that's rough. So for the people who don't know Angela's backstory, her daughter is in, I believe, what you would call end stage renal failure.
Yeah.
And she's too old to be on the pediatric organ donation waiting list
She
by
was 3 months over.
3 months. So Angela's daughter is actually dealing with the ramifications of like kidney failure while she's still a teenager.
Yeah.
And just
Senior in high school.
yeah, in high school. So actually in the comments in this later, we'll post the information for that. Let's go ahead and we'll share that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
There is actually a program that Angela will give us all the info on in the comments, but there's a program where you can see if your match would be a kidney, or if your kidney would be a match for her daughter's, and you could donate a kidney. So we'll definitely drop that. I didn't even think about that ahead of time, but we really will.
Thank you.
I can only imagine, though, how much that would cause someone to wrestle with
Mm-hmm.
where is God in all of this. If I'm a teenager looking at, do I need to make end of life plans? You know.
Well, yeah, and I think she has definitely believed the part before where, you know, ask and you shall receive.
Yeah.
Um, if two people come together and ask, it will happen, and that sort of a thing. Actually, someone who is a pastor and is a part of the school system here, when Elena was little, he asked to come to my house and pray over her because she was born with spina bifida.
Okay.
So this is why I say, like, she's walking, like, she's amazing. She doesn't understand how amazing she is, but and so I think she was really, really waiting for that healing. And so she has said to me, like, he doesn't hear me.
Oh wow, that's a
Yeah.
huge whole other question of mortality and the existence of God. Wow, that's a
Right.
lot to wrestle with.
Right. Yeah. And so I just keep trying to remind her, you know, as a mom, how awesome she is, how blessed she is. And I continue to, you know, read the Quran in front of her. She'll participate in the delicious foods
Right.
when it comes to our holidays. But I mean, she doesn't like, what is the word I'm looking for? She doesn't protest basically when it comes to participating in the holidays and stuff,
Okay.
but she just has told me she doesn't believe.
Right.
So
Man,
that's
that's a whole nother week of conversations, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So that's a lot to deal with as a mom too. I mean, this is the one thing that it like interested me and intrigued me about you from the first place was that like you were so multifaceted and you know, like what's the quote, like I am multitudes. Like I just really your story and your personality captured me from the beginning. But something that I think really spoke to me was just like when we were talking, when I was cutting your hair and we were just talking, and you were just like so calm and peaceful. And so you're describing this upheaval and this experience of shame and being forsaken by your community and your daughter dealing with end stage renal failure. But there was like a deep sense of calm and peace about you that I resonated with from my experiences, you know, in spiritual and religious settings. And I
Mm.
think that that's the one thing that I found most interesting, because like, you know, people can always deny what you say, but they can't like deny what you do, right? And so I had this innate feeling from the time I was around you that we were vibing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
I thought
I
that was
agree.
interesting. So your daughter is like definitely on her own journey with things for sure.
Yeah.
We'll drop for everybody who's watching. I know Cassie, you are definitely want to make sure you get the info, but we'll make sure to drop the kidney donation info in the comments, and share it again for anybody who might be interested. If you could please like, share, get tested. I mean, it literally could save her life. So we'll do that. But I kind of wanted to not steer away from that because that would be crazy.
No, I understand.
That's important. But I wanted to bring up, for the purpose of sharing with everybody else, like the moment that you told me about the phrase like people of the book. So
Okay.
that really captured my attention. So I was cutting Angela's hair and we're talking about the religion and spirituality and God and Allah and this pervasive sense in our guts that there is something more, right? And so Angela told me something about this phrase, people of the book. And before I have her explain that, I'm going to tell you my experience with the religion that I grew up in. So my context was conservative evangelical Christianity, and they were always very like, you must be equally yoked. You know what I mean? You must marry a Christian or the whole world's going to explode. They didn't say that was the sense of gravity, right? And so then Angela mentioned this idea about like how Christianity and Islam relate. So if you can like riff on that for a second, it was really mind blowing to me.
Yeah, so about marriage, in Islam, the man can marry any woman from the book, meaning a Jew, a Christian, or a Muslim. So Muslims consider the Torah, the Old Testament, and the Holy Bible, and the Noble Quran as actual scripture.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. There's
divinely inspired, all three.
They work together.
Yes. And, oh yeah, this is the thing people don't know. I didn't know, when I set out on this journey. Hold on. I just want to say one more thing, though, about the marriage.
Yeah.
The women, female Muslim has to marry a male Muslim, though.
Okay.
Because they feel that the male is the one who is going to be the leader, so that they should be a Muslim to lead the family.
Okay.
But I did not understand, and a lot of people don't, unless they're going to go do some studying, that how similar Christianity and Islam is. The oneness of God, I guess that is the major difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because most Christians believe that God is three in one. I know there's a sect of Christianity like Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, who do not believe that Jesus is God in human form, but they're still Christians.
Mm-hmm.
But like in Islam, they believe that Jesus was born of a virgin, Mary. Same thing. Gabriel come to tell her she was going to become pregnant. And, it's the whole story that is the exact same. And all of the prophets, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, everyone had their purpose, I guess. So they were a prophet. What do we call it in Christianity? What were they called?
I think prophet, like, to be honest.
Is that what?
Yeah.
I'm missing some term in my mind.
It's going to come to you at like 3 a.m. Make sure to go live and tell us what it is.
Yeah. That every prophet had their purpose. Like Noah, for example, like he was a prophet to tell the world, like, we've got to stop or the world's ending, right? And now come with us and get on this boat.
Right.
That's one example. So then Islam puts out that Jesus was a prophet. So not the son of God, but definitely a creation of God. who came to give the message that he gave, like in the New Testament,
Okay.
you know, to start living a certain way. And then Muhammad also then needed to come because things were still not perfected. Like humans are humans, right? And
Right.
now people are burying their female daughters and getting drunk and just doing crazy things. So now he came to like put these rules into place, just like Jesus, just like other prophets. But the similarities are so much more.
Right.
Like as I read the Quran, like I'm seeing, okay, I remember reading this. Oh, okay, I know what the reference is, you know, stuff like that.
I
Oh,
feel
that's
like-
what I was gonna, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
That's what I was gonna say is something that I had noted, excuse me, about Islam when I was in Morocco is how much more certain things are remembered and revered. For example, you know, like they have different holidays that are done in remembrance of things. And like the one that really stood out to me was it's called Eid al-Kabir, which is the big Eid, or the sheep sacrifice is what people usually know it by.
Okay.
But basically what it is the same story, you know, where God had asked Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac, and at the last minute he gave him a ram instead, like to show I'm Jehovah Jireh, I'm the provider, you know, and thank you for your faithfulness and things like that. And so in Islam, every year there's a holiday for that, to remember Abraham's faithfulness and devotion.
Interesting.
So, and I thought as Christians, we didn't do anything like that. We had like Christmas and Easter. That's all I can recall.
Right. Yeah, there is something that something that I've seen through talking to you, and I actually have a really good friend who is a Christian, but he has his master's, actually maybe PhD in Islamic studies, and for him there's no divergence, you know what I mean? Which I thought was really interesting. But something that I like admire about Islam is the depth of it, the history of it. And
Yeah.
one of my biggest beefs with is especially American Western prosperity gospel from non-denominational churches who are literally a fetus, if not an unfertilized zygote in the terms of church history, right? So we all have a church in mind right now. But one of my big beefs with American prosperity, Western colonizer based gospel is the fact that it's the McDonald's of faith. There's no history, there's no substance, you're not standing on anything. And one time when I was in Barcelona, that trip would just change my life. I'll have to like just talk about it sometime. But I noticed that like all of the history there and the architecture there and the churches there, everything was connected to something that was so ancient, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And in America, these churches are connected to absolutely nothing, right? They're not connected to the mainline church. They have no respect for Catholicism. They have no respect for the Pope. They have no respect for the Torah, no respect for the Quran, no connection to the greater story of religious history in our world. Yet they're the ones that are speaking the loudest. And
Yeah.
Isn't that strange?
Yeah. There's something else I want to point out as you were talking about Barcelona. I remembered. So then you heard them call God Allah, must be, if you were in that. So it's a Christian church,
Yep.
but just speaking Arabic, they called God Allah, right?
Yep.
Okay, that's something I wanted to point out too, is that I'm not like all of a sudden worshiping some new God.
Right.
You know, I'm still worshiping the same God with a name.
Right.
That's all. Calling him by his name.
Yo, that's so deep. I'm just gonna end the video now. Like, see you later. That's so true though. Like there was a continuity in who you were worshiping the whole time, right?
Yeah.
Like and in what you were worshiping the whole time. Because I think if you take the Bible or the Torah or the Quran seriously, you have to realize that like the deity, the concept, the otherness, the greaterness that we're sensing. If you take those books seriously, they have to be something so much bigger than we can logically comprehend. And
Mhm.
perhaps there is, like you said, a continuity. Like Allah just means God.
Right. Right. Yes.
Done. Hang up. No, I'm just kidding.
For real though.
No, it's so true though, because I was so deeply uncomfortable. And I have to out myself and admit this story because it changed my whole life, you know. But
Well,
it was God
yeah.
in another language. Like it
Right.
was a different concept. Like if we're talking about a noun, say it's like this red ball and we're calling it God. Just
The
because you say
creator.
God and then you say Allah doesn't mean it's not the same red ball.
No, it's the creator.
Oh shit. Oops. I was
That's it.
trying not to swear in this video, but it just like popped out. So
Yeah.
I want to open this up to questions from the audience. So I'm looking at my phone right now and I'm looking away. So if anybody, we've got some really good engagement on here. Katora, Vicky, Cassie, Anne Marie, like so many people going in. Megan, how are you? I'm seeing so many people on here. So I'm just going to shout out those people and say, hey, Angela and I are going to keep talking, but if you have questions, drop them in the comments. I can see them on my phone here. I'm not
Oh,
just
okay.
looking away, like diverted. But so if you guys have questions, drop them because Angela and I are going to keep talking because frankly, I could talk about this topic forever. But if you guys have questions that you want to answer, that you want answered, or you want us to just talk about, feel free to drop them. Okay. That really, I'm so glad that you pointed that out though, because that for me might be my biggest takeaway from this
Mm,
whole conversation is that like you never stopped seeking and you
right.
never stopped wanting and you never stopped feeling a space that was either filled or unfilled, but you were conscious of a void in you that needed this thing, right?
Mm,
And I think sometimes too, that thing, like I think a lot of times we come to understand what that thing is because of our first language, right? My first language is Christianity.
mm.
I'm always going to default to this understanding. And I might have understood other things, but I'm always going to default to this understanding. So, hey, Nikki,
Well, even me, how many times did I quote something from the Bible
yeah,
just in the conversation?
yeah, we
You
may
know
have
what I
quoted
mean?
the Bible more than the Quran.
Right. And that's because, yeah, that's my first experience, right, with God.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, so Courtney Sherwood would like to know, she said, uh, I'm going to butcher this word, but mashallah, mashallah.
MashaAllah.
Okay, she said that first of all,
Uh-huh.
and then she said, how did you learn Arabic in order to read the Quran and pray, or did you already know it?
Okay. Everything is a process, but when before I first went to Morocco, I studied a couple words in the Moroccan dialect, which is Darija. Um, it is nowhere near Fusha. Fusha is what the Quran is written in.
Okay.
Excuse me. But there are some root words that are the same. Thank you for telling me, mashallah, by the way. um, anyway, so I knew a few words in that dialect, and then I went over. And when I moved there, I actually learned a bit of Darija. Like I can speak it to have a short conversation, or I should say the level of the conversation is going to not be too deep
Okay.
because my vocabulary is not there. But it's enough to get around. It's enough to talk to my mother-in-law and stuff like that.
Okay.
Well, yeah, the mother-in-law. Anyway, that's a different story.
But that's a whole nother video. We're just actually we're gonna abandon like the idea of bringing different people on conversations, and you and I are just gonna shoot the shit every week.
I know my stories are too long.
I'm okay with it. Just so you know, there's a person on the Facebook feed, which you might want to go back through and look at later. Courtney Sherwood is trying to learn herself. So that's why she asked how you.
Oh, well, mashallah. That's awesome. So about Arabic, there are a couple different good people on YouTube that can help you learn Fusha, which is what you need to read the Quran. But my one daughter, she knows how to read. Well, two of them really know how to read Arabic. And so many times what I would have them do, because they didn't have the understanding, but they had the know-how to see what the lyrics were, what they read out to be. So they would read it to me and I would translate it in my head. You know what I mean?
Right on.
So for Quran itself, I have an app on my phone. It is called Muslim Pro. And it has the Arabic letters for each surah, for each verse. And then the transliteration as well under it. And then the English. So that is a good starting base.
Question, and this is once again based on my first language being Christianity, but I had to study biblical Hebrew in college. I'm just going to say I eked out of that class with a D+, which is the lowest grade I've ever earned in my life. But is Arabic also read, like, so we read left to right in English.
Yep.
Is Arabic read right to left like Hebrew is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really messed me up for a long time.
Well, it messed up the little one, like I was telling you, right? So then we came here to the US and he had no instructional English ever. And when we were living there too, they told us to limit the English in the house so that the kids could immerse. And we came here and he's like writing right to left.
Right.
And the teacher's like wanting to test him for dyslexia.
Oh my God.
And yeah, and I had to, because she's so ignorant, the real term of ignorant, I mean.
Right.
And I had to team up with the ESL teacher for her to like get the point across, like Arabic writers write from right to left.
And that's his first language.
Right. And some of the things he would say, I mean, it's much better now. I think only I can probably pick up on certain things now, but initially he would say like, what am I taking today for my snack school?
Right.
You see what I mean? Like switching things around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was hard for him too at first.
That's interesting.
I have since moved him to a different school.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's funny because Elle actually grew up. I'm just like telling Elle's story without her here, but it's a small part. Elle's first language was Spanish when she was young.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so like when she first went to school, that was where English was introduced to her. So it's actually kind of something that she's sometimes bummed about, that she doesn't speak Spanish, like disenfranchised.
Oh yeah.
But she still sometimes, like, her brain is wired to think in Spanish, so she'll think with those reversed words like your little one. So
right, that's what I've tried explaining. That's exactly it. His brain has been wired during those developmental years
absolutely
to be something different, you know. And so I had found this school right over here. Ironically, it's a Christian school, but they know that we're Muslim. He knows that he's still gonna memorize the Bible and things like that, and that's okay because it's really good to know anyway, right? But they are like 90% international student body, so they are not focused on the language barrier.
That's really cool because like the world is global and America is so interested in America. It's like a giant it's a giant cult of naturalism and patriotic circle jerk. Anyway,
yes.
So my friend Marcy, who is like the coolest, sweetest person, I met her through doing hair. She had a question for you, and she just was wondering how long that you lived in Morocco.
Just a couple years actually, but I've been traveling. I've been back 6 times, you know, since we come back.
Yeah, and then COVID put the and all of that.
Right.
So,
Yeah, my plan was to take the kids this summer and stay for a few weeks down south in a beach town. And then I was over there in March and I came back literally right before they closed the borders.
oh,
But then I didn't get to take them back over the summer, but I took the kids back in the last spring.
right on. Do you
So
usually take the kids when you travel over there?
I can't every time because it's extremely expensive.
For sure. You just have a few kids.
Yeah. It's not that I'm going to party without them or something. I should then throw it out that I did end up marrying someone 2 years ago. Happens to be Moroccan. Um, that's a different story, as I said. But
Tune in
so
next week. Um, so so is your husband Muslim then?
he is a Muslim, but okay. And I thought about talking about this. So since you brought it up,
Sorry. If you don't want to, you don't have to.
no. The thing, and I don't want to generalize too much, but because I'm not a fan of that, of generalizing, but I think people who have grown up somewhere and have been brought up a certain thing. So in Morocco, there is no separation of church and state, right?
Okay.
Not at all. So that is just who you are. That is Morocco. It's everything is around religion. And especially the Muslim population, because there is a small Jewish population and a even smaller Christian population, but that's usually the expats for Christianity. But there's Moroccan Jews, and I can talk about that in a minute.
Yeah,
But
I actually love to hear that.
yeah, but I think that like the Islam is just there in them, that is their upbringing, but they are still exploring out just like we would as well, right? As we did as teens or whatever, smoking, drinking, going out to clubs, stuff like that. So he ended up being a pretty progressive Moroccan.
Okay.
He drinks, he smokes, he goes to clubs. So I wanted him to dial it back.
Gotcha.
And kind of be the Islamic leader for our family and things like that.
That makes sense. Yeah, relationships are tenuous. Then you add love in the time of COVID, and then you add, transcontinental travels, that definitely would be fraught with difficulty. So, but that makes sense because, like, basically you were drawn to everything that he was rebelling towards. Ironic.
Exactly, but somehow I fell for him.
Interesting complications.
It is. Yeah, but about taking the kids every time, it's not that I was trying to be selfish or something like that. Of course, I'd love for them to come every time, but I mean, it's several $1,000s.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not like you're driving to New Jersey or something.
Right. And I live in Olean, which is not a very rich part of our country.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
So, tell me, like, one of the things that I'm always drawn to is, like, I feel like there's a great amount of, like, understanding of the poetry of the Quran and the poetry of nature, right? And I think Americans tend to be super right-brained and logical, and like I think a lot of American Christians forget about the like whimsy and romance and depth of the Bible as literature and the Bible as this creative poem, right? And for me personally, whenever I think of Islam, I feel like people are so much more, like the people that I've engaged with that understand Islam are so much more connected to that sense of poetry. Like, do you see a difference between, how, like, let's say from your experience, Moroccan Muslims understand Islam versus how like American Christians understand Christianity?
That's a difficult question.
Right? I'm full of them.
Um, in how they understand it.
Yeah, or does it play out the same? You know, I don't know.
There definitely is a difference. I'm just trying to figure out how to put it into words.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Like for me,
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Like when you were explaining the creation story, like you were caught by the depth of that, like imagery and the poetic nature of that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the whole meaning behind it, it wasn't just, you know, God created man.
Right.
It was, I had a plan, right? And yeah, there is depth. You're right. There was a lot more depth.
Yeah, right. It's McDonald's versus like a 4-course, like, you know, home cooked Italian meal.
Hey, I did that today.
Hey, there we go.
I made stuffed shells. I made cheese ones and meat ones.
I'm a little mad that I wasn't invited. But yeah, that depth, like I'm always drawn to those depths. I have a very hard time swimming in shallow waters just as a person, and it used to cost me friends, but now I've just found the people who want to swim with me, you know what I mean? But
Absolutely.
I love the depth that I've seen from my friends who are Muslim, and my friends who like have studied Islam, that depth that they swim in. I love that.
Yeah, I can say I'm trying to put this into words. Like, yeah, of course, you find devout Christians and the way they worship and things, but how do I put this into words? Certain images are flashing in my mind, like the way that Muslims pray is even more, there's more to it maybe.
Yeah,
In
no,
the form.
there's so much more.
Yeah. And being that I had the chance to live in a predominantly Islamic nation, I experienced it differently probably than many reverts.
Right.
And so I watched people walk it.
Yeah.
You know, the dress is different. You know, I'm a Muslim if I show up with this hijab, right?
Right.
You don't know if I'm a Christian or not if I just show up. Like that's one thing. That's deeper.
That's so interesting too, because lately I've been having this like struggle within myself, because I grew up as a Christian, and full disclosure, from the age of 5 I understood the world through the framework that I was supposed to be a pastor. Like that's been within my being my whole life. And I actually had like a sense of, it's not jealousy, that's not the right word. But when I met you for the first time, like we started chatting because of ORJC stuff, and you brought ponchos to Juneteenth.
Oh yeah.
And you had your hijab on then, and you had it on in your profile picture, and there was a weird sense in me where I was like, man, like I wish I could wear something outwardly that would symbolize this like thing that makes me weird but also unique, you know what I mean, like this deep held belief. But then there's another layer of complication, because like I went to school to be a pastor, but the churches that will recognize my degree won't accept me as a gay person, and the churches that will accept me don't recognize my degree. So there's like a disenfranchised understanding of calling. And I was like jealous. I was like, not jealous, but I was like, I wish I could wear something that would just symbolize like how I understand myself in the world, you know?
Right. Yeah.
There's
I completely get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I have not perfected the hijab, so I don't wear it all the time. And that's okay. That's not one of the 5 pillars. So, but I do feel weird sometimes not wearing it.
Yeah.
At this point in time, I mean, I'm so sorry. I have to cough.
No, that's okay. Go for it.
So that's kind of horrible cold.
You mentioned the 5 pillars, right? So can you tell us like what those pillars are?
Okay.
Also, I know that you consider yourself to be a baby Muslim, and you're just learning, but you are like 1,000 times more of an expert than probably anyone on this video right now. So
well, one of the pillars is to go to Mecca.
Okay.
and you're supposed to try like your hardest to go there in your lifetime.
Okay. So that's like essentially like going to Mecca, from what I understand of Mecca, is like a spiritual homecoming. Like you have to go to this place. What's the significance of Mecca?
So that has a lot to do with the Prophet Muhammad.
Okay.
And sorry, my Moroccan dog is doing something. I brought her to home with us.
Oh.
Anyway, the significance of Mecca. So that is supposedly, you know, where the Prophet Muhammad is. That's like his what's it called? Not his grave, but there's a term for it. You know, the big building in the middle is his mausoleum, you know?
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. So that's
Yeah.
the significance of Mecca.
Yes, and that is, you know, the Prophet of Islam.
And you also, when you pray, right, isn't there supposed to be like 5 daily calls to prayer, and you're supposed to pray in the direction of Mecca?
Exactly, yeah. So on that Muslim Pro app that I was talking about, there is like a compass where it will point you in that direction so that you can find it.
Okay.
So yeah, it's supposed to be in like a clean area of your home. Clean meaning like no animal hair, and there's not supposed to be any human pictures and stuff like that.
Oh, I remember that from when I went to the mosque at here in Olean, because there wasn't any like you said, human pictures. And I think it's so funny because I feel like American Christians are obsessed with Swedish Jesus. Like Swedish Jesus is
Swedish.
Yeah, no, not real Jesus, just Swedish Jesus.
Right. That's a good way to put it. Blonde hair, blue eyes. Yeah.
Yep. I couldn't resist a Swedish Jesus mention, you know.
Yeah, that's something my daughter talks about. She's like, there's no way. Jesus was definitely black. They talk about his hair and, you know.
Okay, so while we're on the topic, Jesus was a black or brown poor person who was anti-government. Jesus was a black and brown poor person who was an anarchist, who was murdered by the state for his beliefs. Like, what?
Right.
I digress. Like, this is not a pillar of Islam that we're talking about here, but I just had to say. Are there any of the other pillars that jump into your mind?
Yeah, so the praying is one, like doing your prayers, fasting.
Okay.
Talk about fasting for a second.
Yeah.
There are reasons where you're able to forego the fasting.
Okay.
And that's if you're traveling, for example, if you're traveling to Mecca and you're not obligated to fast.
Okay.
Like if it coincides with Ramadan, for example. If you're on any long travel. And this is something I want to bring up because it shows that women are actually revered in Islam.
Okay.
Not the other way around. That agenda has definitely been pushed.
Yeah, no, I
that women are completely oppressed. And okay, so when it comes to fasting, for example, if a woman begins her period, she no longer should be fasting. Like not just should be, not, oh, if I want to, no. God then tells you do not fast because he knows that it's very uncomfortable for women to be on their periods and that they need that extra nutrition. So fasting is not okay. Same with praying. So you're not supposed to pray either when you are on your period.
Okay.
And to be quite honest, initially, because I didn't know the reasons behind it, excuse me, I was like, what? That's so horrible. God doesn't think you're clean enough to talk to him just because you're a woman. And no, what it is because of the the position during prayer,
Uh-huh.
it would be very uncomfortable for women during that time. And so you can not do those prayers during
Okay.
that time.
So
Yeah.
instead of being exclusionary, it's like more so respectful.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. So now this brings, so you're talking about fasting. Um, and fasting is something that I grew up, it was like a regular part of my Christianity.
Yeah.
My family was like definitely like my dad did a 40-day fast when I was younger. Like I remember it, you know what I mean? And I've definitely done like week-long fasts, like before, you know, several times before in my life. And I feel like the idea of fasting like is not necessarily understood to people who aren't right in the heart of like a Christian or Islamic faith. I'm not
Mhm.
sure about the Jewish faith. I would have to defer to someone, a friend of mine who knows more about that. But like in terms of fasting, can you explain to me in your words what the purpose of fasting is other than just I'm supposed to do this?
Yeah. So the fasting during Ramadan is supposed to help you to be empathetic, to understand what other people go through.
Okay.
What I have explained to my kids is just like, you know, there's all these people out in the world who don't know when their next meal is coming. You know, can you imagine how they feel? Like we at least know what that we're going to eat at the end of the night
Exactly.
after the sun goes down, and we have that relief, but other people do not. So it's supposed to help build compassion,
Okay.
um, and also let you focus on God instead of these uh, worldly feelings.
Right.
So you're hungry, your belly hurts, like focus on God, like stop feeling those type of things, you know, stop concentrating on those
Yeah.
and focus. And during that fast, you know, you really should be reading the holy text and praying and things like that to try and bring you closer. You know, it's not just about not eating.
Yeah, I think that's what something that like isn't necessarily understood if you don't come from a background that was is like super devout, you know what I mean? Is that
Mhm.
like fasting is like supposed to be an intentional reorienting of yourself towards
Right.
towards the goal. You know what I mean? Towards connecting with God, towards this or that, you know what I mean? And I think that it's really interesting because with both fasting and praying, right, that you've been talking about, they are tangible physical connections to an intangible spiritual realm and being. And so I think it's
Mhm.
interesting that like I feel like a lot of religions, and I can't say this with expertise because I, you know, I haven't studied every world religion, but I plan to. Um, I right, yeah, I'm going there. So back to my television show idea, but I digress. But I think that there is a lot to be said, even about yoga, which is not a religion. Please hear me when I say this. I grew up in a family that thought yoga was anti-Christian. Yoga is
Oh no,
it's a
because meditation.
yeah, yeah. They like people were
Oh,
freaked out when I would meditate or something. But there's a connection. There's a physical connection. There's a mind body connection that plays, you know, your religious belief plays out in your physicality, which I think is interesting that that's something that's present in Islam.
yeah, I want to point out too that you should also abstain from smoking or having relations with your spouse because
Okay.
you're not supposed to be having those feelings at all. It's all about, yeah, like
It's like a
reorienting, right?
complete and utter commitment to this cause.
Right.
Yeah. Right
And
on.
about yoga, I'm telling you what, I had one experience with yoga.
Do tell, spill the tea.
Oh my gosh. I I never really I just thought yoga was like some stretches and then we had an in service one day at work and I chose yoga as one of my things. And I'm telling you, your mind like really goes somewhere else. It
Yeah.
was insane.
Doesn't it though? Like the moment that you try to bring focus to your mind and connect your mind and body, like I get really sassy and bitchy in my brain. And I'm like, maybe there is something to this meditating thing.
Well, this lady told us to go somewhere that is like really comfortable for us. And all of a sudden this scene popped in my head and I'm like, what the heck? It was insane. I don't know. I'll tell you the details later.
Maybe this is
Not on live.
Conversation. This is NSFW conversation. Oh my God, that's too funny. That's too funny. So for some people that are just joining us, my friend Tasha just found us on the interwebs. It was a little difficult at the moment. But for those of you who are just joining us, you will be able to catch this video. It will be on my Facebook page. It will be on the Conversations Facebook page, and I'll also go ahead and put it on there's a YouTube for Conversations as well. It's called Conversations with leowt, just so people could find it by either name. So you can look up either my name or Conversations, and you should be able to find it and catch it on the replay, because you definitely don't want to miss how we got all the way from Mecca to yoga. But I just would like to, I kind of want to reel it back in. My friend Brian says it was wonderful to get to know you a little bit. Brian is also Jewish.
Thank you.
So maybe we can, you, me, and Brian can go somewhere, and it can be a literal representation of like a Jew, a Christian, and a Muslim walk into a bar.
Right. That would be awesome.
Who knew Oleanne? Who knew Oleanne held all of this wonderful diversity?
Yeah,
Actually, we all knew, but but so tell me, and just like from your heart of hearts, like what is one truth, or a couple if you can't limit it, but what is a truth that you have found through your practice of Islam that you wish like the whole world could know?
In this day and age, in this country, I would like everyone to know, as I said earlier, that I'm not all of a sudden worshiping a new God, a new entity, not some something from the evil forces, right? The dark forces. No, it's the same God. And I am still the same person, essentially. When someone, because too many people are afraid of Islam, that's all. Because of the thing, I was thinking about this earlier. I've made the reference, so many people have made the reference of hey, those are terrorists that did all those things. They cannot call themselves true Muslims, because if they were Muslims, they wouldn't have done any of that. They were using the name of Allah in a really bad way to forward their own agenda, right? And they took and studied the Quran and twisted it to their own perverted version, right?
Mm-hmm.
The same as the KKK did with Christianity.
Ooh.
And we do not hold all Christians accountable for that. We are not afraid that every Christian is going to continue what the KKK has done. And sadly, we know they're still in action. But anyway, that's something else. But the country of the United States does not look at Christians as a whole as being that evil force, right? And I was thinking, well, why not? Why? Because Islam comes from essentially a different part of the world, right? So they already fear that to begin with. I was reading a good article about religion, specifically Islam, looking as though they are one race. But I will show you that article. I'll share that.
Yeah, drop it in the comments.
Okay. But basically, people are already afraid of what they don't know. And these are, the biggest population are brown-faced foreigners, right? And we have the means to travel now. So the people who have done evils have brought it over here because we've had, you know, the airplanes and things like that to come over to the US. Whereas when the KKK was like hugely in practice, they weren't taking it overseas, right? And so it looks as though the evil things that terrorists are doing in the name of Islam is been done on a greater scale. I think that's what it is with people, is they see so much of that happening because of the ability to travel, because of the news channels and things like that. But I want people to understand that is not Islam. It's not. I'm telling you that right now. I lived in an Islamic country. I've never once had my safety, like I never felt threatened whatsoever. I would not have taken my children there.
Certainly.
None of them felt threatened. We made some really, really good friends that I'll have for life. I just want people to know that Muslims are real people.
Yeah.
You know, and we're not going to be perfect, you know, either. We're just a normal human. Like, we are not all walking around wanting to do evil things. You know, a real Muslim really wants to make peace.
Yeah. Yo, that's you. You're not an imam, but like you're spitting some fire today, right? Like, like you know what is a real Muslim? Like a real Muslim wants to make peace. Like, if you really are truly a real Christian, like your utmost call is to bring shalom and agape into this world. You know what I mean? Like that's the point of the Torah. Like God by another name in another language is perhaps likely most definitely still God, right? Like I just think it's so like you're so right. Like you're just a person. You're just a person and we're all just people. And like if we could, I don't want to say look past the hijab because that's stupid. But if we could like embrace the hijab, and if we could embrace the collar, and if we could embrace the yarmulke, and if we could embrace the denim patch on the back of the anarchist who's like just trying to do good things in the world, like how much more good shit could we do together, you know?
Well, that's it. That is a true tolerance, being inclusive, and embracing, as you said. Why would we not embrace differences? That was Allah's initial plan.
Yeah, right?
The diversity, the differences.
Yeah, like I loved when you said that about the creation story. Like there was a couple things that you said that really stuck with me. So there was I have one more question. And then someone dropped another question on the feed. So I'll ask theirs first, because theirs is like a real practical thing. Like, do you feel like people treat you differently when you wear your hijab? Like, do you get discriminated against? Do you get stared at? Or are people in this area more accepting? You know, like speaking of here.
Okay, speaking of Olean, all right. I was very scared, literally, the first time I wore it outside in Olean. Actually, I wore it in Bradford one day, and that was not a good experience.
Would you hearing what happened?
Yeah, so I went to Country Fair over there, and I was ordering my chicken wrap that I always order. Now, it was World Hijab Day, so I wore the hijab in solidarity with Muslim women at the time. Now, at this point, so it was my first couple months back, excuse me, I had not accepted Islam completely. I had not said my Shahada. So I wore it in solidarity with other women, you know, to show like women should be able to do what they want. This is not something forced on them. If they want to wear the hijab, they wear it. Like, it's about women's rights and religious freedom. So I went to the country fair and I ordered my chicken wrap that I order all the time on lunch. And the woman must not have recognized me with hijab on. and she asked me at least 5 times if I wanted bacon on my buffalo chicken wrap.
Oh my God.
And I said, do people normally get, I was trying to be so calm because I'm like, now I'm a representative, right? I can't go all Angela Rhodes on somebody, right? So anyway, I was trying to be really calm. And finally I asked her, do people normally order bacon on a buffalo chicken wrap? Like I can see a buffalo ranch, or
Right.
excuse me, a chicken ranch wrap or something with bacon.
Right.
And she goes, well, I don't know. And I said, okay. And she wrapped it up and she went to hand it to me. And then I held on to it, didn't pull, so that she was holding on to the other side. And I said, I need to ask you, did you ask me if I wanted bacon so many times because I'm wearing this on my head? She just looks at me. I said, because if you did.
Oh my God.
I said, I want you to know why I'm wearing this. I said, today happens to be World Hijab Day, where women came together and put this on their head to stand with other women in solidarity for religious freedoms.
Ooh.
And she just looked at me and I took it and walked away.
Oh my God. Yo,
Yeah.
you dropped the mic, you dropped the chicken wrap sans bacon and said,
I should have been, keep it. Put some bacon on it and enjoy it.
put some bacon on it and read something about Islam.
Right.
Oh.
Well, that happened in Bradford, but in Olean, actually, I'm like, okay. I actually received a better response than I initially thought would happen my first day. I mean, an older gentleman, like in his 70s, held the door open for me.
Oh wow.
He was talking to my little boy. Other people were smiling, so I feel like there were more people trying to make me feel comfortable. Like, hey, we're letting you know that we're not afraid of you, or we accept who you are,
That's interesting. Keep talking, but I have something to say about that.
Okay. But there have been times where people will stare. I mean, stare like with no expression.
Like, don't your eyes dry out?
Right. And I'm serious. Like, and my middle daughter is real sassy. And she'll be like, Mom, do you see her? I'm like, it's okay. It's because I'm wearing hijab. And she's like, can I help you?
Oh my
You
God.
know, and I'm like, just stop. Because to be honest, now this is something I'm going to be really, really transparent about. And I've only ever talked about it with my oldest son. I feel like because you don't really see any Muslims around here that are not like Pakistani people that have come here to work, right? Work and live.
Mm-hmm.
People seem to be okay and accepting of foreigners that come like that. The foreign doctors and things that we have here, a couple of them wear hijab, and people seem like, okay, it is what it is, leave it, right? But, excuse me. But I feel like you don't really see born Americans here in Olean with hijab, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is an outward symbol that I'm a Muslim. And I feel like I'm like this representative. And at first, bear with me. At first, I felt like, okay, when I put on hijab, oh my goodness, I can't speed at all. I'm late for work, but I'm not going to speed because someone's going to see this hijabi running past him and be like, yup, them damn Muslims. Breaking laws, or look, I just cursed. I said, damn, see? So I better not do that. And I better not take it off one day and go and, curse out my jerk neighbor over there. Because if someone then sees me in hijab tomorrow, they're going to be like, that girl's a fake. She's a fraud. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's not how it should be, because we are still people. I'm just wearing a scarf on my head. You know what I mean? I
Right.
still love God. I still love people, but I am a human, and I'm going to speed sometimes on the way to work, or because I'm running late and had all these kids to get ready for school, or
Right.
I'm going to tell off my racist neighbor because he doesn't want a brown family living over here. You know, like, I'm still a human.
Yeah. No, that's so true because like I mean that's like the blessing and the curse of like the human condition is like we're capable of so much good but we're still fallible, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for
And you
sure.
can't hold yourself to this crazy standard because like you are a representative of Islam, but like being a representative of Islam is still being a human. You know what I mean?
Well, what I mean about that is people around here, I'm so sorry to generalize, but a lot of people around here in this area just don't know anything about Islam, right? And they've never left here. They don't know anything about the rest of the world
Yeah.
other than what they're seeing on TV. So I feel like I'm the only representative. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So they've never met a Muslim. They've never talked to one. And they think what they think. And now they see me doing whatever if I'm going to cuss or whatever, you know, and
Yeah.
I don't want it to be a bad image. I want them to understand that Islam is not evil.
That makes sense. So you essentially feel the weight of your, you know, of your whole religion just on every little interaction that you have, even
Yeah.
with hello chicken girl.
Yeah.
That's heavy, man. That's like a lot. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Especially being here, like knowing that you know, a lot of people don't want to or haven't had cause to investigate what Islam is. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
You're almost at a disadvantage to begin with in their eyes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So interesting. I think so. The one thing I wanted to say that struck me earlier was so I'm a trans person, you know, I'm pretty out about that. I did tattoo queer on my hand. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Oh,
I tattooed the word queer on my own hand, which I have the jury's still out if that was a good or bad decision, really. But I did it, so it's there. But you know, I worked for the newspaper as a photojournalist pre-transition, and so people knew me, right? And then I'm also just my general jovial self. So people,
excuse me.
um, but then the downside of that was as I transitioned, like people knew me, and I always have to say I have to say truly that my experiences in Olean um, have been better than I expected them to be. And I don't know what that means or what that doesn't mean. But, you know, in the light of everything that's been going on in the world and like the racial tensions that have been happening and everything, like I think that I saw the spark of something good in Olean. And I think that there really are good people here that want to hold the door for you, or that want to ask you a question instead of assume, or that want to, you know, grant you personhood. And I think part of my mission in life right now is to just stubbornly keep showing up in Olean and trying to rally the good people. Because the hateful people have had the mic for too long, you know what I mean? And I really think that there's a lot of good in our area. And as weird as it is, we are an urban center for our area. Like that's
Yeah.
mind blowing, but we're the bastion of culture here. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's interesting to hear, for me to hear you say that, you know, you did have some good experiences here. Um, yeah, that just like, I don't know if there's really anything that can be drawn from that, but it just struck me that you had some good experiences with that.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised.
Absolutely.
I will tell you though that I wouldn't put it past anyone to yell something out at me or something,
Also
you
the
know?
sort of Olean.
Yeah. Yeah, but like you said, there are so many good people. Like I've encountered so many people like fighting for the cause that we've been fighting for, you know, with racial equity,
Yeah.
that are just like, it's awesome. Like that day that we went and stood against the wall when the mayor tried kicking us out.
Oh my God, I think that was when I like fell in love with who you are as a person. I was like, here is this woman in a fucking hijab, and she said, I'm not leaving. Actually, you didn't say anything, you just stood there, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, that is serious.
But I think the guy who was also next to me, I think it might be the guy who just commented, Brian, you said?
Yeah,
The
Brian.
Jew?
Yep, yep.
Because I remember him telling me he was Jewish. So then there's him, my daughter, and myself, just like, nope, we're holding strong here. But I mean, that goes to show you, you know what I mean? That we can coexist,
Yeah.
and we can not just coexist, but build good bonds with each other.
Woo! I'm
You know?
getting chills when you said that. I am telling you that like some of these experiences that we've had with the ORJC and just the activism we've been doing locally have been the most sanctuary moments, the most holy moments that I felt in a long time. And it is wildly ironic that, you know, Brian, who is Jewish, shows up all the time, also super gay, pretty sure everybody knows, and he's okay with me saying it. But he's showing up every time. You're showing up every time. I'm showing up every time. We got all these diverse people showing up to say, like, hold the phone, like injustice will not stand, and racism will not stand in Olean. And I've had such like powerful moments of intersectionality and diversity since all this started. Like,
Yeah.
ooh, good feeling. Yeah. Good feeling now. So I think that I personally have a beautiful wife that I need to go spend some time with. And you probably have some kids that need your attention.
You need to finish this hot chocolate.
Finish that hot chocolate. But I just wanted to take a second to say thank you for coming on. Like, I know that you don't consider yourself to be the best public speaker, which is like total horseshit. You're just new at it.
No, thank you.
But also, like, I know that you feel like you know, you are young in your faith and you have so much to learn. But I'm so glad you brought up that moment at City Council, because like that to me it just spoke volumes to me about who you are. And I saw such a strength of character in that moment. And I've seen that in you consistently. And I've seen this like depth and breadth to your faith and your understanding of the world. And I just have to say, like, I've truly enjoyed getting to know you as a friend, and really being out on the streets doing the work with you has been like a total pleasure, in my opinion.
Same. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
I was like, like you said earlier, we totally vibe. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying getting to know you too. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think the overall message, I mean, there's so many, you said so many great things today where I just wanted to end the Zoom call at that point, because I knew I was going to say something that wouldn't be as good. But I think one of the overarching themes that I'm seeing here is that, like, we're here in Olean. Like, when you look at the people that we've been involved with, we've got gay Jews, we've got non-binary Christians, we've got, you know, like white Muslims, females, we have people, you know, who are disabled or differently abled. We've got people who are supporting us from behind a screen because they're, you know, older and they're more and they're more vulnerable to COVID. Like, we've got such a diverse group of people here. And I think that we have a chance in Olean, and perhaps in the world at large, to take the microphone back from the haters.
Yeah.
You know? And we don't even have to do it by being crazy rebellious. Sometimes maybe we'll just stand there and refuse to leave the town hall that we have all the right to attend.
Right. We didn't put up any like big commotion or anything. Just stood there.
We just stood
excuse me, till I counted the chairs.
Right, yeah. Yeah, you did some basic.
That's it, you know.
But I'm so thankful for your presence in Olean. I think that, you know, you're truly, like, your faith has made you into a person who can impact the world for good. And there was always some innate spark in you, pulling you towards Allah. And I thank you for your willingness to come on this video. And I look forward to working with you in the future for sure.
Thank you. Absolutely. You too. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. We had a ton of viewers throughout all of this, actually. So thank you guys so much for coming. Angela is going to drop a couple links for us in the comments. Angela is going to drop a link to the kidney donation website situation. Angela, also, if you would mind dropping maybe just some links for like people who want to know more about Islam, or even the app that you mentioned, if you would post them, that would be so, so cool. And everybody else who's watching, thank you so much. I'm going to be doing these videos every week. Conversations is my attempt to tear down my understanding of what I thought church was and build it back on a foundation that doesn't suck, while also embracing, you know, the greater history of religion and spirituality in our world, and building a vibrant, dynamic community in person and online. So thank you so much for joining me. I'll be here. I aim to do a video every Sunday night. There is a YouTube page, Conversations with leowt. There is the Conversations official page, which is going to be where all official announcements are going to come from. There's the Conversations official group, which is where we're having daily dialogue about spiritual and religious and intellectual things, just intentionally building a community of openness and acceptedness. So make sure you get plugged in. Make sure to get other people plugged in. Like, the whole point is just to build community, because that's the number one thing that I think people are missing, and that people want out of a religious experience. So everybody have a great night. I'm going to end this call now.
Can I say one more thing, please?
Yeah, say it.
I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
Because I realized I did not finish answering that question to the girl who asked about how I learned the Arabic to do my prayers.
Yeah.
I just wanted real quick. So about that Muslim Pro app, what, I'm like advertising for them. It's completely free. Anyway, they have the prayer calls and everything. Like, there's a timer. But so what I would seriously do is open up to what I knew I wanted to read. And I would literally have my phone with me until I memorized them, because it has the transliteration so that you know how to speak it.
Ooh, okay. Very cool. And you also, there's one other thing I want to have you drop in the link, or drop a link in the comments. You had mentioned to me, there was it was like a version of the Quran that it helped you understand. Was it like,
so that one, it's in complete English. However, I wish it had the Arabic with it.
Right. Okay.
Unfortunately, but I have one that's all Arabic and one that is the English. And this one is a study Quran. So it is literally, as it says, a study Quran. So each verse is broken down, and there are references back to Christianity as well, to say, just as the same, you know, for example, when David and Goliath, blah, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so that you know it's the same story.
Cool. Very cool.
It's so good.
Yeah, if you could drop that in the links, that'd be great. Like, I know there's got to be other people out there who are curious. So
Absolutely.
All right. So thank you, everybody, for coming to Conversations. Thank you, Angela, for blessing us with your experience and your time and your energies. This video will be on Facebook, and this video will also be on YouTube, and I'll be back here next Sunday. You can check the Conversations official page for what is going to be happening on a weekly basis. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.